from beautiful coast of Cyclist in Latvia. Welcome to the GCN Show.
Welcome to the 400th GCN Show.
Yes, coming up this week, talent versus training. Could anyone ride the Tour de France with the right opportunities and enough hard work?
Was that a quick glance over?
It was, yeah.
Was it? We're also going to take a look at a new four-wheeled bike from Canyon that looks more like a concept car. And we've got the return of the Chain Keeper. Happy days.
What a way to celebrate a 400th show. Thanks, mate.
This week in the world of cycling, we learned that Norway has just completed a cycling superhighway. It is designed to allow cyclists to continually ride fast and not have to slow down.
Yeah, awesome. There's even a dedicated bike tunnel through a mountain to avoid a steep climb. There's also merging on and off ramps so that bike traffic can basically flow like car traffic does. I think it sounds amazing. Dan, you might need to do some training before you ride it. Just...
Fair point. We also learned this week that 400 episodes and over 7.5 years into this, GCN predictions are as good as they've ever been. You can go first. Who are you going for?
Thibaut Pinot.
Yes, if there was any doubt, Ollie confirming he is a genuine, fully fledged GCN presenter with that one. Although, Dan, there are now question marks over your status because you picked Pogačar and he's actually looking all right.
He's looking blooming amazing. Yeah. Although we probably shouldn't speak too soon.
Well, no.
Should we, Si? Also this week, we learnt that Julian Alaphilippe's relatively poor performance in the GC, certainly compared to last year, might not just be down to the weight of a nation on his shoulders, but rather because of an insanely expensive Richard Mille watch weighing heavily on his wrist.
It takes some nerve racing a bike in a watch that costs about $120,000, doesn't it? That price, according to Cycling Tips, they're the ones that spotted it. We wouldn't know, would we, Dan?
No, but we know now. I'll have to wait for a bog-off offer before I can wear one on my wrist driving down the street in my Skoda, I think. Moving on, actually last week's show, you might remember we talked about how amazingly powerful Tour de France riders are. So here's an important follow-up question. How much of that power is down to training, diet, getting 9 hours of sleep a night?
Yeah, not drinking beer.
Steady on, Si, but yeah, I'll take your point.
Yeah.
But the question is...
Not pint.
Yes, the question is, can anybody get there with enough hard work and the right opportunities?
Yes, but how much of it is down to just sheer talent and amazing DNA? Actually, with that photo, we've probably got our answer, haven't we?
Case closed already. Now we should carry on with this topic, which is a really interesting one. And actually, I think the most famous and biggest argument when it comes to talent versus training is probably that 10,000 hour one, isn't it?
Yeah, so this was written by Anders Ericsson in the early 90s. And it states that the secret to becoming a true expert in any field is putting in 10,000 hours of practice. So he reasoned that with enough hard work, anyone could become an expert based on his research group of violinists, because the one thing that they all had in common was that they had practiced for 10,000 hours in order to become an expert.
And by that reckoning, the 20,000th episode of the GCN Show is going to be a cracker.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Of all that practice, Si. Now, unfortunately, although it is a very famous theory, it's also quite flawed because there's a great variability between different people as to how long they take to become an expert at anything. However, some never make it, no matter how long or hard they try.
Yeah, thanks for that one. Now, there is also another fault, is that it doesn't factor in that the people who are probably most willing to put in 10,000 hours of hard work are those that actually naturally pick up the skill quickly in the first place, because you can start to enjoy it more. And it also doesn't feel particularly relevant to cycling either, because cycling is less skills focused, certainly than playing the violin, and more physical focused, isn't it? Unless you're Ilnur Zakarin and you still can't go downhill, even after all those years.
Very true. He was shocking, wasn't he? Especially compared to Hershey following day. Now, I was reading an old blog post from a sports scientist by the name of Ross Tucker the other day, and he linked to a study which I think might give us our answer on this one. It came from Bouchard et al., who tested 473 sedentary adults and their VO2 max. They then gave them the exact same 20-week training program, after which they tested them all again.
Yeah, the results, the average improvement was about 15%, but there was a huge spread. Some people improved by as much as 40%, and others didn't improve at all.
They then went on to look at the genetics of the entire group, and they found that the two can be reliably linked. Some people are just more trainable, some people are more talented, and some are both.
However, it's not quite that simple either, because the top athletes aren't just the most genetically gifted. I think we've all seen those young super talents that never quite deliver on their promise. And that is because in addition to genetics, there's something else required as well.
Now, another study that Ross Tucker linked to came from Maria Elfering-Hemser, who has been prolific on this very subject over the years, but there's one in particular that I think stands out, and it's entitled The Marvels of Elite Sport, How to Get There.
That does sound relevant to this, doesn't it? I kind of wish I'd read it sooner as well.
Well, you might wish that you hadn't, actually, when you hear what it's got inside it. So basically it says that youth talent ID schemes are flawed because they only take into account the performance of those youths at that particular moment and not what those performances could become later in life. And as we all know, kids mature at very, very different rates.
Indeed. Some of us are still waiting to be able to grow beards, actually, 20 years.
And some of us have already got grey ones.
Yeah, that's right. Now, what Elfring-Hemser then goes on to say is that actually what future top athletes have in common is that they're able to derive more from the same amount of training, so they improve faster, but then they're also able to sort of be more aware of their own training. They take more responsibility of it. They score higher in areas of self-regulated learning, so kind of reflection and effort. They're therefore more aware of their own strengths and weaknesses, and fundamentally, they also try harder in both training and also competition.
And so in conclusion, to be good, you need to have the genetics or be trainable or be self-aware, committed and work very, very hard. But ultimately, to be great, you need to have all of those aspects. And at the end of the day, the person that's the best of the best and will wear the yellow jersey at the end of the Tour de France is going to have all of those, plus the best genes.
Yeah, I think actually Ross Tucker sums it up pretty well in his blog when he says that training will get you to your ceiling. So you will realise your genetic potential. Will that win you a medal then? Only if you choose your parents right, which, you know, kind of hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? And, you know, on a personal note, actually, for a long time in my career, I was sort of looking for this magic combination of training sessions that would unlock hitherto unknown levels of performance, when in actual fact, I had clearly just got to my ceiling, give or take living like a total monk, which, of course, I couldn't do because I didn't have the capacity for that either. No. I just was as good as I was.
It's a horrible realisation sometimes.
It was, yeah. Well, funny enough, I retired.
I could live like a monk for about 4 or 5 days at a time, Si, after which I'd crack and have a cake in the afternoon and quite a few beers in the evening.
Unless you live like a Trappist monk, because don't they just brew beer all the time?
Yeah, a Belgian monk, that would suit me down to the ground. But you know what I mean, I could show a lot of commitment, but in the end I realised that the best method for me was not to be 100% committed the entire time, because I'd just crack and then I'd do something that wasn't very good for me at all. So it was best to give myself some rewards for the training that I was doing. But I also had that realisation when I got to the Cervelo test team, that you know, this is the point where I thought in my career, now I know what the best nutrition strategy is in the world, now I know what the best training is to do, etc, etc, etc. And I got there and you realise that people like Tor Hushovd or Carlos Sastre, if they just rode their bikes for 15 hours steady away every week, they were still going to be at load better than I was with all of the science in the world. And again, that was a bit of a stark realisation, but I think goes to prove what the studies have shown us today.
Yeah.
Next up, GCN Inspiration, your opportunity to win one of 3 prizes each and every week. All you need to do is upload your inspirational cycling photos or videos to the GCN app. We'll pick our favourite 3 and all of those 3 will win a prize.
Indeed. 3rd prize this week is some striped socks. Woohoo! And the winner of 3rd prize is Todd... Now, hang on a minute. How do you think you say that? Guim? Todd Guillem?
Todd GCN.
There we go then.
I don't know, but it's an unbelievable photo, and that's the most important thing. I'm just wondering what's coming in second and first already. Next up, in second place, and receiving this week a Stripes sweatshirt, is Debbie Kennedy, who sent in this evening ride from the Col d'Aubisque from Laran, which hosted a Tour de France stage finish, I think, recently. A legendary climb. Yes, you're absolutely right. Although it looks like it could even be in sort of the Yorkshire moors somewhere, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
I'd quite like to be on the Col d'Aubisque as well.
I wouldn't mind. Although this last one, actually, the winner is from here in the UK. So this was sent in. Oh, I'm winning, by the way, before we get on with it. A complete striped bundle. So there's a whole load of GCN swag there, which is super cool. Anyway, this was sent in by Robert Booth, taken at the top of Crag Vale, which he said is usually choppy and bleak, but it was beautifully still. And he snuck out for a cheeky little after-work ride before the sunset. And I just think that's cracking, isn't it? What an amazing photo.
The Tour de France being on now actually has started to muck with my senses, because we're getting towards the end of nice evening rides, aren't we?
We are,
It's getting dark very quickly now. But with the Tour de France on, it feels like it should be the middle of summer.
That is true, actually, yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
I was just going to say, the one thing about Robert's photo there, that would inspire me to ride quickly, because those clouds do look like they mean business.
Yeah, let's hope he's carrying on in the direction his bike is pointed in.
Yeah.
We've got a bonus actually for you this week, which came in from Halcas01, I think that is. Sorry, size copied and pasted these in very low
It's
detail.
not just Dan's failing eyesight there.
Cycling weight loss. Started out on my 30-year-old Schwinn 434 at 220 pounds, dropped to 155, and rewarded myself with a new Roubaix comp. Thanks to the GCN team for great videos, motivation. Ollie the Everyman, watching him on his quest.
He'll love that.
Very helpful for the motivation. We've had a few of these recently, and it's always inspiring to see. It doesn't matter how many people you see take up cycling and change their health and lose weight. It's still an incredible achievement, and just makes you realise how powerful the sport can be.
Absolutely. Well, particularly the last bit there as well. The weight came off in 8 months, and 3 years later it's still off. That is amazing, isn't it?
Well done to you.
Yeah, so please keep all your inspirational photos coming in, whether it's cycling scenery or whether it's inspiration that's personal to you. It's fantastic. We love it. Upload it to the app and we can all share it.
It's now time for cycling shorts.
Cycling shorts now, and we will start with the news that Canyon seem to have debuted a concept car. Yes, concept car.
Well, kind of a car, isn't it? I mean, it weighs 95 kilograms. It is capable of transporting 2 people and going at up to 60 kilometres per hour, and it's got 4 wheels, so there are car aspects to it.
Oh, yeah.
But I guess the party trick with this thing is that you can switch it to e-bike mode, which theoretically at least means that it should be able to travel around on cycling infrastructure.
Yeah, well, because it's narrow like a bike, isn't it, I think? Anyway, for a future of urban mobility, I think it looks pretty good, actually, if I'm totally honest. It's not cycling, so I can't imagine it would be quite as fun or as liberating or as invigorating, but you'd stay dry if it was wet. You wouldn't get ridiculously sweaty, or I hopefully wouldn't. And also, you wouldn't kill the planet as much as if you were driving. So yeah, thumbs up from me.
I just don't know if I'd want to use something like that on a normal road with other big cars and grenadiers, etc.
Yeah, I see your point. I mean, you would feel quite vulnerable effectively sitting on the tarmac.
I've got a flat! Literally. Anyway, moving on. The World Championships, the UCI announced last week, will still take place this September. As we know, they weren't going to be able to take place in Switzerland due to COVID-19 restrictions on gatherings, but they found a new venue in the form of Italy, and Imola, to be precise.
Yes, but any concerns about this being a boring snooze fest around a motor racing circuit were quickly allayed, weren't they? Because the UCI then released the course details, and they're pretty savage. So the men will be tackling 260 Ks and doing nearly 5,000 metres of climbing. The women, meanwhile, whilst they're only racing 144 kilometres, again, but debate for another day perhaps, but they are still doing 2,750 metres of climbing, which is pretty punchy.
Great news. Although the news is not so good for juniors and under 23s, unfortunately will not have any races there this year, and their season really has been very badly affected, more so than the elites. Anyway, it's definitely something that we'll be able to watch after the conclusion of the Tour de France and the Giro Rosa.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you will be able to watch highlights of the Giro Rosa after every single one of the 9 stages, which starts on the September the 11th, unless actually you are in Australia, New Zealand or Italy. Geo restrictions apply to those places. The race is not actually produced live at all, so no one's got live footage, but we will be amongst those taking the highlights afterwards, with commentary coming from Marty McDonald and also Danny Rowe, although she is due to give birth during the race, so we'll see how far through she gets.
See how committed she is to commentary.
Yeah.
Won't we, really?
All that available, of course, over on GCN's Race Pass.
Yeah, now with all of that racing going on at the moment, you'd think that pro teams have got enough to keep them busy. But no, EF's Lachlan Morton has been staying true to form and searching out ridiculously hard ultra-endurance gravel events.
In this case, it was the Trans-Iberica Badlands. So this race is 695 kilometres long with 15,000 metres of climbing, putting Imola to shame. And it took him just 1 hour, 19 minutes, 1 day, 19 hours and 30 minutes, I'll get it right. And of that time, only 35 minutes was spent stationary, which is bonkers.
That is. It's kind of incomprehensible, isn't it, for that period of time? But anyway, fair play to him. Right, now we've got some really important news from Zwift now, because the Academy returns. So this is the Global Talent ID search for men and women. The prizes for each is a place on a real-life pro team. So Canyon SRAM, again, for the women. But the men's team has changed this year, so it's now Alpecin Fenix, which also means there is now, guys, no age limit for the pro contract. Oh, yes.
So you could become a teammate of Mathieu van der Poel.
Yeah.
That would be pretty incredible. So obviously there's a lot for many of you out there to look forward to on this one, particularly with the lack of an age limit. I was training again until I read that study by Maria that we linked to a little bit earlier on.
Well, yeah, you'd have done all right committing for 4 days at a time. Moving away.
Anyway, registration actually opens today if you're watching the show on Tuesday, the 8th of September.
That's right. It is, of course, open to everyone, so not just those with a hope of getting a place on a pro team. The idea really is it's a community thing where everyone can take part and just get a little bit fitter. To graduate from the Academy, you will need to complete 8 workouts and also 4 mass participation events as well.
Now, sticking with Zwift, we actually need your help on something now, because our mates over at GCN are hosting a race between cyclists and triathletes this coming Thursday. So if you do participate, your result will count towards whichever side you're on, and therefore will help decide this argument once and for all.
That's right. So I'm hoping to be there, all be well on the start line. I wondered if you wanted to race as well, Dan, but I thought it might be good if you race as a triathlete this time, if you fancy that.
Why?
Well, because then, when you don't do very well, you don't mess up the result for the rest of the cyclists.
It's a negative for the triathlete.
Basically, yeah, it's tactics. I thought, yeah.
Very good, Sly. Anyway, moving on to something completely different, and a company called Effetto Mariposa. They've just developed a brand new tyre sealant for tubeless tyres, which is biodegradable, plastic-free, and plant-based, which is great news, isn't it?
It is cool, isn't it? So apparently it's made up, instead of the usual chemicals, from ground-up olive stones and cellulose fibres, which is pretty cool. But the best news of all, even better than being sustainable and environmentally friendly, is the fact that you can wash it off your clothes, apparently.
Maybe not the best news for everyone, but Si's particularly pleased with this one, because he's wearing a pair of jeans that 2 years ago got a white stain on them due to some tyre sealant.
Due to tyre sealant?
Yes, and it's still faintly there now, but what it means is that all future jean purchases are tyre sealant proof for you, Si, aren't they?
I've washed them at least twice in the last 2 years and it's still not come off.
Hack / bodge of the week now. We'll crack straight on with this. The first one comes in from Adaz. Seen this parked outside my local supermarket. Where to start with this one, Si? Well, obviously 2 sellers. Looks like a fairly small person and child is going to be on the front seat there. I also can notice a footrest on the rear seat stays, chain stays. So presumably somebody's sitting on the padding that's on the pannier. So transporting 1 adult and 2 kids around?
Yes, I think that's right. And conveniently, it looks like it can fold in the middle as well. That's a lot of weight on a folding bike with such tiny little wheels. So hopefully they've got some good tarmac near them.
Is it a self-converted e-bike?
I did wonder whether there was some kind of motor going on there. That is a lot of stuff on that bike.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the concern for me, I would say hack immediately because you know, if you're managing to transport people around by bike to school or whatever instead of in a car, that's happy days, isn't it? But it's the safety aspect that always worries me, especially with kids involved.
Well, especially if you've got a motor that can power you up to 25 k's an hour. So yeah, I think I'm going to say bodge on that one, probably.
Okay, well, I'll say bodge as well. 2
bodges?
Yeah, 90% saying bodge on that one as well.
Fairly universal, well, condemning of that of that little bike. Next up, we've got this one from Jay Gunnerall. Jay Gunnerall. This is putting his dad's old 105 cassette to use. This is a cassette that he says has been through several tough races, among them the Vätternrundan, a 300k road race around a Swedish lake. And now he's gone and stuck a candle in it and turned it into a very fancy candlestick.
I was just counting the sprockets to see how old this 105 cassette is, and I think there's only 7, possibly 8.
Well, that is quite old.
Either way, it is quite old, isn't it? I'm going to say bodge. I mean, it's just a cassette of a candle stuck in it.
I mean, it is really, isn't it?
This, you know, we base this on whether or not I could do it a lot of the time, and I'm pretty sure I could do that.
Yeah, I'd also think, well, what would happen if I put that on my table at home? And I don't think it would be critically acclaimed by anyone who sits around my
even
table.
by your kids.
No. And it's a shame because I've got a lot of very close ratio cassettes.
Well, we've talked about this in the past. The comment section's gone wild with the 2011, 2012 Campagnolo Super Record cassettes that we've got lying around our house. Indeed. They can go wild again down below. Anyway, I'm going to say bodge.
You know what? We should bring at least several of them in and make them into candlestick holders.
Line them up.
We could have a romantic GCN
show. Yeah, next week. What are you saying?
Bodge, massive bodge.
I'm going for bodge as well. Well, we're in the minority actually, Si, because 77% of people went with hack. Remarkably.
That is remarkable. Okay.
Well, I know what the result of the next one's going to be because it is our chainkeeper /dummy hub /false hub comes in from Slop Chest. 3D printed false hub for cleaning and repairs. Broke their Park Tools one. Getting harder and harder to find tools in stock. So I made a new one from an old bolt-on axle, various cones and lock nuts, and a simple 3D printed wheel. And it's a thing of beauty, I've got to say to you.
It just looks like a massive bodge, not least the axle made out of, what was it? Various cones and lock nuts. That automatically...
But look how neat the chain is.
Well,
it's not resting on the chainstay.
But also, why would you bother 3D printing that wheel when it looks like something that you get for free when you've used up your duct tape?
Try as you might say, you know it's a hack.
It's total bodge.
Well, 74% of people disagree with you and agree with me on that one. So well done. Hack, hack, hack.
All right then, we got this one that's come in from Ems. I think it's absolutely incredible, yeah. Now, I personally probably wouldn't sport it, but anyway, made out of recycled inner tubes. She says, not sure if posting this is appropriate, but I wanted to draw attention to what you can do with recycled inner tubes. And I don't know how on earth that's been done.
That must have taken a long time, sure.
Yeah, so handmade by artist Emma Ware in East London.
Well, that's incredible. In the UK. I will definitely give that one a hack.
Absolute hack for me, yeah, 100%. That's brilliant.
A hack from 81% of you at home too. That is actually all for this week's Hacks and Bodges, but don't forget you can get involved by submitting your Hacks and Bodges or something you see on the street to the GCN app. But next week's Hacks and Bodges are already up on the app for you to vote on, and we'll be reading those out next week.
It's time now for Caption Competition, that part of the show where you get your chance to get your hands on a GCN Elite water bottle down there sporting the new limited edition yellow ones.
It's bright yellow, isn't it?
It is bright yellow.
Perfect for this month, this year at least. We've also got some French flavoured t-shirts for you in the shop at the moment as well, including the one I'm sporting today. Possibly not the best model to sell it out to people, but you get the gist at least and how good you might be able to look if it wasn't on me.
Yeah, I like the new chapeau t-shirts.
They do look good, yeah.
Very cool indeed.
Hats off to the designers.
Indeed. Oh, I see what you did there, mate. Right, that's pretty much set the tone, hasn't it, for Caption Competition. This was last week's photo that we gave you, Egan Bernal munching on his gabba. I have to say, I actually properly laughed out loud when I read Mark Gilmore's caption. He said, Egan, when we said this jacket will stop your teeth chattering, that's not quite what we meant.
Very good, Mark.
Amazing.
If you're on Facebook, send us a message there and let us know your address. We'll send that bottle out to you. In fact, let us know which colour you'd like. I think these are in very short supply, actually. So
I believe they are.
I can't promise anything,
sold
Mark,
like
but
hotcakes.
We'll do our very best. This week's image is of CCC's Michael Shah on the podium at the Tour de France. I will get you started. I'm sure you can still see me smile with a face mask on. I'm not my best effort once again, but I mean, freaky when you start to. If you pause the image now, I mean, the smile is incredible.
That is weird. He really does have a. It's also really high up.
It looks like Roadrunner.
Yeah.
Let us know your best caption in the comment section down below, and you could get your hands on a GCN bottle from Elite next week. We've got 4 cracking comments coming for you before we let you know what's coming up on the channel over the next week. Firstly, actually underneath last week's show, which was the 399th. Vladimir Zoro Zlatic, next show is the 400th. My goodness, I grew up with you guys, started watching nearly 5 years ago, and now I'm 21. Really puts this into perspective and really makes us feel quite old.
It does, yeah. I'm also quite intrigued to know how it's affected your development. Watching,
yes.
Watching GCN through such important years of your life.
I left cycling at the age of 19, but still watch your shows.
Yeah, underneath James's cracking video about whether you should climb seated versus standing, he said, JMS said, a dad wouldn't be a dad if he couldn't embarrass his kid publicly where it really counts. That is true, that. Actually, I'm looking forward to that.
It is. I mean, we're both dads, aren't we? We can't believe that we're not cool dads, and you realise that that's what every single dad in the entire world thinks. I'm going to be such a cool dad, like my kids will never be embarrassed by me. Not very true. Never found out. Under top 6 stupid rules, Fatboy Ride says, you can tell James has been on holiday when he's on camera, looking like a finely roasted tomato. Although it does bring out his nice blue eyes, doesn't it?
That's right,
Contrasting red cheeks.
Yeah, and then Manon did a cracking video, cycling advice for women. Brandon was watching that one. He said, sorry Manon, but I have to disagree. This video isn't just for the ladies. This is also for the men trying desperately to get their significant other into cycling, like myself. Well, hopefully that worked, Brandon.
Well, it's a good point, isn't it? That if you have got somebody that you'd like to get into cycling who is female, then there is that video there that Manon's done that you can show to them, and hopefully it will inspire them to get onto 2 wheels. Yeah.
Hey, before we move on, Dan, there were also a lot of positive comments responding to the first ever poem on GCN, which I was delighted about. Yes. Yeah, it didn't get deleted from the edit, and at least 4 people actually enjoyed it. So high fives all round to poetry lovers. Maybe we'll bring another one back soon.
Right, well, let's let you know what's coming up on the channel next week. So we'll start with tomorrow, Wednesday, which is how to climb like a Tour de France pro. Getting increasingly hard looking at some of the power to weight ratios being bandied about.
Hopefully Thibaut Pinot will watch that one then.
Oh, I already... Anyway, I'll move on from that one. Thursday, top 10 things you need to know to understand bike racing. And it can be incredibly complicated when you first get into the sport.
It can,
or even when you've been doing lots of stuff in the sport like us. And on Friday, we've got the Tour de France eating challenge.
Yeah.
Who got to do that challenge?
Much simpler, Connor. So basically, can you eat like a Tour de France pro for a day? What do they eat? First of all, why do they eat it? And then can you do it?
And how much, presumably?
Yeah, he is delighted at the prospect. Yeah. Obviously, he raced a Grand Tour last year, didn't he? So it's fresh in his mind, but nevertheless, he's up to the challenge. Then on Saturday, well, I'm going to give you a little shout out to the GCN Tech channel. We've got a Ridley Canzo Fast first look. So that is their new aero gravel bike with one of those very natty classified rear hubs, which turns your 1x drivetrain into a 2x drivetrain. So I cannot wait to get my hands on that. And then finally, Sunday, Ollie and Hank are riding Wales in a day. So that is the country of Wales, and they're riding it from north to south. It's 300 Ks with about 5,000 metres of climbing. So good luck, chaps.
We shall finish the show with yet another extreme corner. And due to much demand, mainly underneath last week's show, we're going to feature Ollie versus Blake on their gravel challenge.
Ready, Ollie?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go!
that, smooth as butter. His wheel came off the ground a little bit on the first jump. It's all right. It's all right, it's time for me to catch him.
My word.
Blake's impressive, isn't he? There was a cracking comment came underneath that video from Andy A, actually, who put, this whole video is basically what I think I look like versus what I actually look like, and I won't well, I won't tell you which way around it is, because I'm sure you can work it out yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Brilliant. Right, well, thank you very much for watching. As we've said, our 400th GCN show, and yeah.
I'd say we've come a long way, but we're sort of still here doing the same thing, but enjoying it.
We are indeed, still. Yeah. But like you said, we've got a lot of hours still to go before we become experts at it. So,
we have.
So yeah, stay tuned.
Just before we finish, quick shout out to Race Pass, because not only can you watch the Tour de France in certain territories, and Tirreno Adriatico and the Giro Rosa, but in all territories of Race Pass, you can also catch the breakaway show after each stage, which features Bradley Wiggins and sometimes Brian Smith and Sean Kelly too. So make sure you don't miss them.
Yeah, that's been absolutely brilliant watching. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And also World of Cycling each and every week. This week, Sean Kelly takes to the sofa.